Akpabio. This is Ask the Experts, where we bring you conversations with professionals, industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and policymakers, helping us understand the issues, opportunities, and challenges shaping Nigeria's business environment and economic future. Nigeria's contributory pension scheme has become a major pillar of retirement planning, providing millions of workers with a structured system for saving towards retirement, while requiring employers and employees to contribute towards long-term financial security. Over the years, the scheme has grown significantly, with more workers joining the formal retirement savings system and pension assets expanding. However, discussions around proposed changes to mandatory pension contributions have generated considerable debate among governments, regulators, employers, labor stakeholders, and economic analysts. While proponents of higher contributions argue that increased savings could strengthen retirement benefits and improve the financial security of workers in their later years, the organized private sector has raised concerns about possible impacts on businesses and the wider economy. Employers argue that businesses are already operating under significant pressure, facing rising production and operating costs, inflation, foreign exchange volatility, high energy expenses, multiple taxes, and weaker consumer purchasing power. They are concerned that any additional payroll obligations could further increase the cost of doing business, particularly for small and medium-sized enterprises, with possible implications for employment, investment, wage growth, and business expansion. At the heart of this debate is a critical question: how do we protect the future of Nigerian workers without placing unsustainable pressure on the businesses that employ them? As discussions continue among governments, regulators, employers, workers, and other stakeholders, the need for a balanced, evidence-based, and inclusive approach remains at the center of this conversation. Today, we will be discussing proposed increase in pension contributions, protecting workers for increasing the burden on businesses. Joining us in the studio this morning is Mr. Thompson, Akpabio, Director of Legal, Regulatory and Taxation at the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA. Mr. Akpabio brings expertise in legal, regulatory, and taxation matters, and will be helping us examine the concerns of employers and the organized private sector as discussions continue over proposed changes to pension contribution and their potential implications for businesses, workers, employment, and the Nigerian economy. Mr. Thompson, Akpabio, good morning and welcome to Trade and Foreign Business Briefing. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning to us.
Thank you for being here. Now let's start with the proposal itself. What exactly is the federal government and PENCOM proposing to change about pension contributions?
Thank you for having us on your program, Trade FM. I want to state that I'm speaking for and on behalf of the organized private sector of Nigeria, OPSN, and there are well over 30 bodies within the OPSN. NECA is one of them. MAN, Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, is one. NASIMA, NASI, NASME, NATO, and then several of them from all sectors in Nigeria. So we have them in the hotel, hospitality, we have them in the shop and distributive, we have them in the regulatory, we have them in the AFBTE, Association of Food, Beverage and Tobacco Employers, and several of them. So there are well over 30 federation of employers across Nigeria. And it's on that note that we are making this presentation or discussion on the program at the Trade FM. We all woke up sometime this year in the very recent past to news from the National Pension Commission. And we are looking at amending the Pension Reform Act, right? And there are three major areas of concern which they have actually looking into one, the amendment of the Pension Reform Act. However, they are looking at increasing the employer's contribution to the scheme from 10 to 15%. Also, the employee's contribution also going up from 8% to 10%. And then also introducing a cost element, which is a contributory taxation in our view, right? Because they're looking at 3% of the total wage bill of employers in Nigeria, which was never there. And it's surprising that that is coming up. The reason why we say it's surprising that this is coming up is because, interestingly, I represented the employers at the OPS at a public hearing sometime last year, May, and when the bill came up in the House, in the National Assembly, these elements of these new introductions were not there. So the major focus of their amendment is additional burden to employers and by extension the entirety of Nigerian workers, which is not the way to go, especially at this time.
Thank you very much. So now, the organized private sector has expressed concerns over the proposed increase in pension contributions. What are the biggest concerns from the employer's perspective?
There are several. I want to tell you one big concern because there are several of them. If you look at the terms of, I want to put them in different buckets. One of the concerns is, let me talk about the employees themselves, the workers. What has been the benefit which they have derived since the Pension Reform Act came into place? Has that been considered? Even if it is increased, would it not be eroded by inflation because of doing business, living wage, and all of those things? So there are several. For the employers, is an additional burden, additional tax element. You know, the tax element or the burden of the employers is not just on the basic salary. Several other things come into place. For instance, we are looking at equipment costs, training costs, basic salaries, allowances, and several other costs, HMO, medicals, and other. So all of that is bound to be affected as well. Now, look at the employers. They're already overburdened. A while ago, when you were speaking, introducing the program, you make mention of inflation, you make mention of some of the challenges which employers are already facing in Nigeria. And these challenges, you can't wink them away overnight, right? And so, rather than place additional burdens on employers, we should look at the way of making the employers to continually remain in business so they can also be there. So the challenges are not. You have the economy challenges, you have the wage challenges, you have the employees challenges, several of them. So the concerns are numerous.
Okay. PENCOM argues that higher contributions could improve workers' retirement benefits. Does the organized private sector agree that the current pension system requires increased funding, or are there better alternatives?
Now, the argument from PENCOM, with all due respect, I wish it is being substantiated. Right, what do I mean? Increasing the contribution will improve the conditions of workers. What is the present contribution that has come in so far? How has that improved the condition of workers? Because the money is not given to workers until retirement. But the workers will not retire today or even at the end of the year. So how has that argument substantiated the point that if you are going to increase it, that it will be, the workers will be better off in the immediate term? No. What government should be looking at is how do we arrest the issue of inflation? Because by the time the money is kept, the inflation blows away the purchasing power of that money. And by the time the workers are due for retirement and apply for their pension money, the value will not remain the same. The value of 10,000 naira now and that 10,000 naira in the next 20 years is not going to be the same. So that argument is not substantiated. How I wish, right, we have come up with empirical evidence, data, information to prove or to show that yes, it will increase the amount contributed. It will better the lot of workers. No. Don't forget, it's still a same thing. I give you an example. You are earning 10,000 naira and you are contributing 1,000 now. As a worker, you go home with 9,000. I'm not factoring in taxes and levies which you need to do, like payee, right? But that's why you go home with 9,000. By the time the contribution is jacked up, you will no longer be going home with 9,000. The money will have further reduced, so as to improve your life. The answer is no.
The organized private sector says the proposal was announced while consultations were still ongoing. Why is the timing and process of this announcement a concern?
Can you take that again?
The organized private sector says the proposal was announced while consultations were still ongoing. Why is the timing and process of this announcement a concern?
You see, the truth is, why should you be in a hurry to announce a rate increment if consultation is ongoing? Why don't you wait for the outcome of the consultation? Which way? And as a consultation has actually taken place. We've engaged with the employers, we've engaged with the social partners, and having engaged with them, this is the outcome of the engagement. Consultation is one of the things which we do. We believe so much in social dialogue, right? Because we're going to still be in the same environment, the same client with all these parties. So our point is this: if truly consultation is ongoing, let us pause, await the outcome of the consultation exercise with all relevant social partners, with all relevant stakeholders, so that at the end it will be an agreed position. We have consulted, we've sought inputs and all of that. But having not done the proper thing in terms of consultation, and you go ahead to announce, it's not the right way to go. And that is definitely our position.
So now, with businesses already dealing with high energy costs, inflation, exchange rate pressures, and weak consumer demand, could an additional period push some businesses to downsize or shut down?
The answer is obvious. The answer is obvious. But certainly it will push them not just to downsize, but we will now be able to have more people off jobs. And why we are going to have that, we should be looking at the consequential effect. Social vices on the increase. And it's not just going to affect the employers and employees. Taxes will no longer be paid to government like payee, because the people will no longer have jobs. And for those of them that have family, wife, children, hospitals, schools, living conditions, may actually be tolerant. That shouldn't be the right way to go. In fact, what we will be urging government to do is that government and PENCOM should draw its mind back to the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Right, I'm referring to section 14 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, where the law explicitly states that that welfare of the citizen, if I say security and welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. So welfare is clearly stated out there and the primary responsibility of government. So rather than take steps to impoverish Nigerians, close down businesses, put people back on the street without jobs, what are you doing in terms of improving the lot of Nigeria? I know of clients that pension is being contributed by government. Take clients like France and Italy, for instance. is being done at the states.
That's something Nigeria could definitely increase. Now, could the proposed increase unintentionally encourage some employers to move workers from the formal sector into informal employment to avoid additional statutory costs?
You know, there's an extent to which the employers can cope. When you are push them to the elastic level as we are right now, a snap is inevitable. So you need to see a situation whereby, sorry, I can't afford this. So what will happen? Redundancy exercises, downsizing. What will happen? There will be freeze on recruitment. There will be freeze on training, right? Because they can't afford it. And by the time all of that happens, more people will be out of jobs, more people will be out of employment. So what happens? Those that are able to stand and that can cope will gradually migrate, either stay at home or, let them start a one-man business. And what does that mean? The informal economy. But then, for some of those that are in the informal economy, or those of them that are the SMEs, right, they will still be caught up with that. So people now come up with clever means of how do I reduce cost, or how do I avoid being caught in that net? Maybe I'm not going to have enough work manpower to work with me, so that the numerical strength is met. I introduce AI and technology, still does the job. I'm not going to pay AI or machines, automations for pension. So let the people stay and all of that. I'm not going to produce in Nigeria. I will produce outside the shores of Nigeria, import it in. After all, we have the after FCTA agreement, which allow free entrance and exit of goods and services and people as well. And so all of that. And Nigeria will not be the better for it. Because why? Production will become zero. Manufacturing would have closed down. And what do we really do? Nothing.
The organized private sector has called for credible actuarial and economic assessments before any increase. What evidence should the government provide to demonstrate that the current contribution rate is no longer adequate?
First, how did they arrive at that increment, jacking it off from the current 10 and 8 to 15 and 10%? For employers and employees. Secondly, with what has been contributed over the years from 2014, what has been contributed in terms of the amount and the percentage from 2014 to 2026? And this will be done per sector. The food and beverage sector, the manufacturing, the oil and gas, the insurance, the banking, the telecoms, sector by sector. Then, an increment, what will be the potential outcome of it? How will it benefit the employers? How will it benefit the workers? Both in the immediate and in the long terms. What has the money been used for? What happens to investments? What is the outcome of it? How accountable are they? So there should be an actual database, not done by them, but somebody independent. I will look through those books and come and announce it. Yes, these are the directions to go. We have looked at it. 10 naira is no longer sustainable. Let's make it 15 naira. Or 15 naira is sustainable because it will improve or increase this. Why they are doing that? They should age that against inflation. Right. They should age that against the current state of things in Nigeria, both for the employers and the employees as well. They should age that against how often is pension being paid on an annual basis. And that should be done per sector. In the oil and gas, 20% pension was being paid in the sum of this to so number of people that retired in the oil and gas. In the banking and insurance sector, this percentage or this amount was given. This should be statistics, so that we are taking a decision based on facts, actual evidence, not somebody waking up and just imposing a figure. When we had that public hearing in last year May, I was at the National Assembly. Nothing on increase no was done. In fact, the major subject matter of that public hearing at the National Assembly was the criminalization of pension contribution and workers' agitation to collect 75 to 100% bulk money once retirement is done, in terms of the annuity and all of that. Okay, I'm retired, give me my 100% pension. And those were the discussions. Not increments. So let us have there should be a basis for taking this decision.
From the perspective of workers, some may argue that contributing more today means having a better pension tomorrow. How does the organized private sector respond to workers who support the proposed increase?
Interestingly, the answer to your question has been provided for by the pension reformer. Why do I say so? Section 4. Yes, Section 4. Section 4 of the Pension Reforms Act. I'm not going to quote it line by line, but I'm going to paraphrase it. Now, in subsection 1, it gives the rate to be contributed in terms of 10% and 8% for employers and employees respectively. In subsection 1. In subsection 2, right, it says that you can decide to increase the contribution. And in that area of increasing the contribution, what is to be done? An agreement will be entered into between the employers and the employer to increase the pension contribution for them. So if your company decides to jack up the pension contribution, that should be done with your agreement. Going to discussions or negotiation with your management, whether at the company level or at the union sector levels, right? Once that is done, the amount is increased. So the parties, which is the employer and employees, have agreed. They've sat down, discussed, and agreed to an upward review of what is to be contributed. And once that, they communicate that decision, that agreement to PENCOM and with the losses. And that will be done. So in that way, there's an upward review. Again, if we go to sub 3 of that still section 4 of the Pension Reform Act, it says when an individual employee, an individual staff, an individual worker feels that even the amount contributed by law, 10 and 8, plus the amount contributed by the agreement between the employer and the employee, or the employer association and the workers association, is still not satisfiable to him. Him by himself, let me use that term clearly, Nigerian language, him by himself can decide to say, no, I want to contribute a higher amount. And that is allowable enough, which he will do. And then communicate that. So when we have workers that feel that, oh, we want a higher contribution, they are free to do it on their own. The law doesn't find, in fact, the law welcomes it. In fact, the law provides for it. So if workers, employees, feel that that's the direction to go, they should feel free to engage in the discussion. They should feel free to increase their own contribution individually in terms of what is going to be done for them. Right?
If the objective is to improve retirement security, what alternative reforms does the organized private sector believe will strengthen the pension system without significantly increasing the financial burden on employers and employees?
We believe in a situation from the organized private sector, right? A situation whereby the parties could sit down and talk. What I mean by that is social dialogue, not war, but Georgia. And now you're looking at the situation that the amount is not sufficient. A couple of questions should be asked. How many people are in the net, the contribution net? Pick a sector. How many companies within the sector has contributed to the Pension Reform Act? If you have 10 companies, maybe in the telecom sector, and only 2, what happens to the remaining 8? How many people have done that? So you need to widen your collection level, efficiency level, enforcement level, so that you have more people already existing contributing, and not to punish those that are visibly contributing, known to us. What they could do is they sit down and pick a sector and say, oh, in this sector, maybe aviation sector, there are 10. How many companies in the aviation sector has contributed to the pension, are in compliance with the Pension Reform Act? And are they in compliance as per the provision of the law 10 and 8? You see, with more income will coming down there. Those are things we should do. We have the law already in place. It is the understanding and implementation of what is there already, rather than increases. Because increasing it now is going to punish those that are in compliance. Meanwhile, those that are not in compliance, you don't even know them. Nobody is speaking to them. Nobody is talking to them. So you bring them into the tax net, into the pension contributory net, so that more is in the net for them.
Okay. Beyond contribution rates, are there other weaknesses within the pension system, such as compliance, coverage, transparency, or enforcement that should be addressed first?
As much as I would love to speak on that on the air, I would like to still respect the fact that these are issues that will be discussed in terms of consultation, which we talked a while ago, with the social partners. Because some of the things that they would want to introduce, we are totally against it. For instance, the mandatory 3% of the employer's wage bill is a no-no. It is a no-no. And so, those are areas we should be looking into. 2, if we are going to strengthen the Pension Reform Act as it is, the first thing we should be looking at is what has gone wrong. You don't change a winning team or a winning horse. What are the areas? There should be an holistic overview of the law from when it was in place till date, taking into consideration the changing world of work and the fact that several things have changed over the years from when that law was implemented, enacted, till date. And so by the time we look into all those things, we want to say, oh, we need to tweak this, we need to amend this. I bet you some provisions of the pension reform have not even been touched. For instance, I was talking about section 4, sub 3 a while ago, where the employer and employee could sit down and agree for a certain amount of percentage to be contributed to be higher than what the law provides. How many sectors have done it? How many employers? So some of them have not been touched. Again, you look at how is the pension fund being managed. Investment, for instance, the safety of the funds, for instance, how is it being handled? How is it being managed? If we're going to have a massive retrenchment across all sectors in Nigeria, and out of the entire population, working population, 80% are going to lose their job or are going to retire. 80% of the working population of Nigeria, can we be certain to be sure that they will get their pension fund as at when due if 80% of the workforce in Nigeria were to retire or to be out of jobs today? So those are areas we should consider. If people are saying, okay, we want 50% or 75% or 100% of our personal contribution because we're no longer in a paid employment due to retirement or redundancy or for whatever or age level we want to start a business, what can that be done? Areas. If you want to take a mortgage, right, and they're looking at various mortgages and things like that, net off government to government. Can it be done? Not just a policy or a guideline, it's a law thing. So there are several areas that can be reviewed. That's why I say I prefer where the stakeholders will sit down and will discuss.
Nigeria still has a large informal workforce outside the formal pension system. Should expanding pension coverage to more workers be a greater priority than increasing the contribution rates for those already enrolled?
I agree with your question. The workforce is already large, formal, informal, especially the informal. I tell you, the formal sector is less than 5% and it's dwindling. Why is it dwindling? Because companies are folding up, they are closing shop. So the number is coming down. I think at the last count, it was like 4.3%, not even up to 5%. So we'll be having more people in the informal sector, a lot of one-man business. Why did they survive? So focus should not be on increasing. How do we sustain the people? Sustainability for every economy and every nation that needs to go forward and grow healthily. We need to take into consideration that those in the regular formal employment needs to be retained even in the workplace in their country. And that's an area that we're missing out. And I urge that we don't go that route as a country.
Finally, what would the organized private sector consider to be a balanced pension reform? One that protects workers' retirement future without threatening businesses, employment, and investment.
I don't know when last a study was done in terms of how have we performed in the last few years of the Pension Reform Act. How has it improved the lot of businesses and that of the employers? Are they still in business or are they out of business? So you're looking at a balanced pension scheme for the whole country. It's something, again, that the parties will sit down and look at it. There are certain things that, yes, you might want to legislate over, but what about the enforceability of it being legislated? Because of the will, because of the easy implementation, because of the results that it's likely to give. And those are things that we should look at. While we are not against workers, right, being healthy, while we are not against workers having a good future, right, we shouldn't also look at a situation whereby the pension is increased, the workers goes home with lesser amount of money because the deduction is made from source. The money is kept somewhere and it is being eroded by what is called inflation. I don't even get the picture. The pension is increased, assuming the money is kept somewhere and the worker goes home with a reduced amount of money. Meanwhile, the pension that is being deducted is eroded away by inflation. Who loses at the end of the day? So for something to be balanced, we urge government to work on the inflationary conditions in Nigeria. That will make a balance. Increasing the rates is not the way forward. It's not the way forward. Because whatever will be increased can still be eroded away. So there should be policies like that. And even for the companies that have been in compliance, they should be commended, recommended, and then things like tax incentives should be given to them. Oh, this company ABC has been in compliance over the years, so for that you're getting an award, or for that you're getting a rebate, for that you're getting a tax incentive on this, and that's keep them going. Rather than increase and people now say, sorry, we can't pay, au revoir, everybody goes home, taxes no longer comes to government, and then the ones that are able to keep the money is eroded by inflation because of things keep going up. Recently Trump brought a tariff and also imposed on Nigeria. The US-Iraq war is having effect also on the same Nigeria. The exchange rates having effect on the same Nigeria. And all of these are individual elements on one organization, excluding the already known ones, excluding the other statutory ones. How about now? If you were the employer then, you want them to say, sorry, I can't take this anymore. That's not the truth. But rather than do that, you should consider all of this.
Mr. Thompson, Akpabio, thank you very much for joining us this morning and sharing your insights and perspective on this important issue.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Today's conversation has highlighted the delicate balance that policymakers must strike between strengthening retirement security for Nigerian workers and creating an economic environment where businesses can continue to grow, invest, employ workers, and contribute to national development. The debate over pension contributions is ultimately about more than percentages and payroll costs. It is about the future financial security of millions of Nigerian workers, the sustainability of the pension system, the ability of businesses to remain competitive, and the broader question of how Nigeria can build an economy that protects people while encouraging enterprise and job creation. As discussions continue, meaningful stakeholders, engagement, credible economic and actuarial assessments, transparency, and broad consultation will be essential to ensuring that any reform is fair, sustainable, and responsive to the realities of both workers and employers. For workers, a stronger pension system should provide confidence that years of service will translate into dignity and financial security in retirement. For businesses, reforms must also take into account the realities of operating in a challenging economic environment and the need to preserve jobs, encourage investment, and support enterprise growth. Ultimately, the goal should be to build a pension system that protects workers' future without placing undue pressure on employers, employees, or the wider economy. If you're just joining us, you can catch highlights and be part of the conversation on our social media platforms. We are at Trade FM Live across Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and our YouTube channel.